Won't you get hip to this timely tip? When you make that California trip, get your kicks on Route 66.
Hello, I'm Linda Maguire, professional musician, neuroscientist, and gerontologist, and I'm here today to talk to you about retraining the brain using music. What is that? That's what I specialize in, and we're going to talk today specifically about singing, but I'm also going to introduce the aspect of listening as well. Why don't we start with that? What is singing? What's the difference between music where we're actually doing it and music where we're just participating as a listener? This whole series involves a group, the City Choir of Washington, that performed recently in Frederick, Maryland. And so I'm sponsored by the Delaplane Foundation and happy to be here to speak with you today about the power of music to transform us, retrain our brain networks, and help us resurrect memories, reshape them, and move forward in aging brain health and aging brain wealth. Music assists in that. So there are two ways to look at music participation. One is as a passive listener. It's very receptive. We go to a concert, we sit quietly for the most part. Sometimes we tap our feet, and it's a very receptive situation. We let the energy of the sound that's being produced kind of sweep over us and come into our brain through the auditory system. And we are able to reflect on that music, to perhaps our mind may wander while we're listening to music. A trumpet or a loud percussive part of the song may perk us up again. And there are different brain tissue areas that are stimulated through the rhythm of the music, through the architectural melody of the music, the instrumentation that's chosen. A trumpet is very different from a bassoon, as it were. And so passive music listening is very much a form of free energy that we receive very passively and are able to reflect upon and decide whether or not we enjoy it or not. I developed prescription iPods as prescriptive listening playlists for different populations with different issues: post-traumatic stress, depression, children with autism, dementia patients, Parkinson's patients. And so passive music listening in that aspect needs to pair with some of the aspects or issues of the listener. It's a physiologic mediation that I speak with scientists, nurses, doctors about often, as far as the powers of music to change and transform us through a physiology. We tap into heart rate and lower blood pressure and release melatonin, or activate through healthy amounts of cortisol or adrenaline, dopamine, etc. So that's the listening aspect. Today, however, we're talking about singing. What is singing? Singing, we have to find energy, we have to burn energy to create sound. We have to sit up straight, we have to activate, we have to inhale, press that oxygen into the lungs, and sustain a sound. Sounds that have meaning. Often we repeat, sounds that have meaning, sounds that have meaning. And every time we sing or repeat words or phrases at different levels, or even at the same level, we get to express it differently, mean it differently. I tell my choirs, never sing hallelujah the same way twice. We are constantly growing. And that's a cognitive dimension of performing that is healthy for us as adults and aging adults as well. I'd like to talk now about singing and the process of singing. Does singing come out of nowhere and people just stand up on stage and perform? No, they don't. How does it start? It starts usually, come to rehearsal, hopefully you're on time. I say if you're not 10 minutes early and ready to go, you're late. But we sit down and usually there's a vocal warm-up. For the city singers this weekend, just a big, wide, long yodel, purl and cascade down. And that kind of explores your range. When I sing new students, I say, sing your lows note, ah, sing your highs, ah, for instance. And so it tells the whole mechanism, seated, uncomplicated, no words, no music yet. La 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 la, doobie 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 doo, doobie 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 doo, doobie 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 doo. Just like you stretch and begin to exercise slowly but steadily, and you're committed to the process. It's a way of committing to the process. Is your voice perfect when you begin? Probably not. The voice has to warm up just like a muscle has to warm up. So that's how most singing choir sessions start, with vocal warm-ups. And vocal warm-ups range from a single scale, la, 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 la. That's about what I do when I have to sing, and a couple of other things. But there are any number of ways to get the voice flexible, pliable, staccato are good, any number of interesting warm-ups out there with the wonderful array of choral directors. So, and that's usually seated. Sometimes they have you stand up, but it's often seated. In this choir, they continue to sit seated and begin to sing through the songs where they can, I've noticed it's a way to start internalizing the rhythm, or reactivating or resurrecting that rhythmic recall, especially with all the syncopation in the program they're going to be singing. Ta-ta-ta-tum your pum, the way you tie your tea, the memory of all that. No, they can't take that away from me. What I noticed is a fair amount of movement in those initial run-through of the song. Then it's time to focus more on the director and to watch them while you're singing it yet again, warming up again with a song to make that connection, and we start to hive up. And that's the essence of seated warm-ups and seated rehearsals.
Let's do a good siren. I do the best you can. Get all that moving around. Let's do a siren on ah.
The way you dance so free, the way you change my life. No, they can't take that away from me. No, they can't take that away from me.
Next, we begin to stand up, and by this time, our voice has begun to warm up, and we have knocked through last-minute details, or actually learning a piece, if we're at that stage, of rhythm, of precision of notes, of cutoffs, just reminding of where all our cues in the music lie, that we're going to have to exercise in performance. And then when you stand up to sing through, we're paying more attention. We stand a little more still. We don't keep beating our feet and tapping to the music. We're able to connect at a different level. So we're basically layering aspects that lead to performance. So by the time we get to a performance, we're warmed up. We have gone through the mechanics of the song, including rhythm, cutoffs, articulation, enunciation, pronunciation, and perhaps even added some cognitive value where we repeat phrases or even words. And so we're more confident in being able to message confidently to the listeners who are the receivers of what we're doing. And so what I've noticed in the excerpt that follows is that there's more of a core to the sound, more of that hive, a little more bite. And when you have that core, bite, hiving, collective, we've all had to build separately, and now it's time to come together. And performance is the greatest teacher, as they say, and that's the truth. You can really transform when you're performing for others for various reasons. First of all, you have something to say. The composer has given you something to say and sing about. We've picked that up. We're now delivering it. And our senses and our instincts, these subconscious processes that enable us to deliver a piece without really having to micromanage everything. We did some micromanaging early on. We've warmed up. That's a way of micromanaging and trusting that the voice is going to warm up the engine, right? And then we've done a seated run through where we can tap through the rhythm and make marks in our score and check with our colleagues, are we doing it all together as a section? And then we start to really follow that conductor because they're in charge. They're going to pull it all together, help us pull it all together as an ensemble. And then we go to the performance. And when there's an audience out there, it's much different. So singing in your bathroom while you're taking a shower is much different from singing at the Kennedy Center when there's no one in there, right? Still kind of cavernous and bouncy, but it's a lot different. Different performance arenas are different. Then you fill the place with people. Not only do you have bodies in the room that are going to absorb the sound, but you've got a certain amount of energy coming back at you. And some are involved. I like it when people nod their head. Not all people do when they're listening. A lot of them are just, for whatever reason, you don't know what's going through their mind or if you're really touching them. There are different ways to measure that, but we won't go into that now. Even pupil dilation, you can tell especially with males, their pupils dilate when you can see their eyes change if they're responding. So our job as performers is to work with the dynamics of the room, whatever they may be. Could be a herd of elephants come in there, and we'd have to change to get through them and beyond. And so that's what we do as singers. We move all the molecules in the room to give a collective message and sound to listeners. So that's the essence of performance. And so we transform. The singer who performs, if they're well warmed up, well rehearsed, well prepared, and willing to follow the conductor and allow sound to be produced, add the cognitive matrix of their sound and interpretation of what they're singing, as allowed by the conductor and by the composer, that master piece of music is brought to life. It's literally brought off the page, and sound is painted on silence for audience members. It's a beautiful thing, and it's an effective thing. So in the process, the way you la la la, the way you sip your tea, the way I know all that, oh no, you can't take that away from me. I can mean it differently every time I sing it. And so I'm able to transform. And it's not just I'm saying, the way you tip your hat, the way you drink your tea. I mean, I could try to say it differently every time. Very limited how we can say those things just speaking it.
The way you smile just beats. The way you sing I'll please. The way you haunt my dreams. No, they can't take that away from me.
So the rhythm in any music really affects our heart rate, changes in our heart rate, very minute changes, but very decisive changes. So if I have a relatively slow heart rate, bump, 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 bump bump. And Alexander's Ragtime Band, which is one of our songs in this program over the weekend, ba-da-da-bum-bum, ba-ba-da-da-bum-bum, ba-bum, Alexander's Ragtime Band. Come on in here, come on in here, it's the best band in the land. Later in the program, we sing a patriotic song. Give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to be free. Several things are going on, but the basic pulse and tempo talks to our heart rate and either activates us to the degree that we're sensitive to it, and most of us are pretty sensitive to music, or it relaxes us, it makes us melancholy, reflective, we're more settled in our seats. It's a homeostasis is what they call it in the medical arena. And it's a healthy thing for the most part. But during the course of an active day, we want to activate as well. And we need sympathetic, activating, faster than heart rate for movement, activation, alertness, focus. And that's rhythm really dictates which part of the human system, biological system, activation, the sympathetic nervous system, or relaxation, the parasympathetic nervous system, all a part of the autonomic nervous system, which is your brain and central nervous system. So that's kind of basically, it really boils down to that, and music really folds into one or the other and then adds dimensions of instrumentation, color, phrasing, the accompaniment, other aspects of focal stimulation, and where we sing. We can sing in chest voice, la 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 la, men have the low notes, or this Julia Child voice that stimulates the pituitary gland, and right, you can feel the areas in the brain stem buzzing back here. And then there's a high area that is more in the frontal bones of the face, pretty much above the nose, and we get to shake tissue in the frontal lobe as well. So that's the idea behind singing. It breaks down pretty simply. The music in this program from the weekend, again, Alexander's Ragtime Band. Ba-da-ba-dum, pa-ta-pa-ta, ba-ba-da-ba-ba-ba-ba. So it's decisive, it's articulated. When you hear that syncopation, your body says, ooh, ooh. You feel like you need to join the beat that comes before the beat. And it activates you. That's good. There's some repetition in this. The men sing, come on, come here, come here, come here, come here, come here, on the same note. And how boring is it to say that the same way each time? No, we continue to grow as we're inviting everyone to join and listen to the band.
Alexander's Ragtime Band. Come on here, it's the best band in the world. We can play with a roll that you never heard before, so let your roll, let your run goes before. That's the best tempo that the rest is coming up. Come on along, let me take you by your hand. To the man,
Another syncopation piece from the weekend was I got the sun in the morning and the moon at night, which is kind of what I call an attitude of gratitude song. And it's full of syncopation, and the words are basically about happiness, hope, acceptance, gratitude, and just a lot. I got the sun in the sunshine, gives me a lovely day, ba, ba, ba. So that activates the singer. Takes a lot of energy to kick out those syncopated notes. And then another activation group of songs is the Gershwin Portrait. Gershwin puts everything in syncopation, whether it belongs or not. He is Mr. Syncopation. So let the drums roll out, calling one and all, slap of your thigh, clap of your hand, the way you wear your hat, the way you sip your tea. Those are syncopations, activation and syncopation. So that activates us as singers, and to do this whole book takes a lot of energy. Scientists have made decisive claims on research that supports singing is very healthy for the brain. It activates many parts of the brain. And when you combine that with nostalgic memory, like these wonderful old Gershwin songs, and great arrangements that keep the rhythm syncopated, we activate, we resurrect older memories, we phonate to them, we create sound, we're pressing oxygen into the lungs. And the brain is very oxygen greedy. It's a primary fuel for the brain. And we transform. We are fueled. We've resurrected an old memory. We've reshaped that memory with new arrangements. We repeat these songs again and again. We bind and bond with the harmonies of those singing around us and the energies they're creating, both in the sound and in the movement and intensity. And, of course, the conductor is leading it, and Rachel Binger does a great job this weekend. So all of these things combined are what I call hiving. So when you have syncopated music like this, let's see, we have got over 75 pages of syncopation in Gershwin. A little bit of soft melody in the middle, but mostly syncopation. We're going to bind and bond together and activate collectively to make this music a performance. So that's the power of syncopation.
Got no mansion, got no yacht. the morning and the moon at night.
On the other hand, we have music that is relaxing music. And there's several pieces I want to talk to from the program this weekend that pull us into this parasympathetic or relaxation paradigm of physiology. Our heart rate lowers, our blood pressure lowers. Mind you, we're still singing and we have to sustain these long notes. There's very little syncopation in songs like this. The tempo is generally slower. Here's The Road Not Taken. This is a Robert Frost poem that many of us have known all our lives. I remember reading it many times as a child. I never thought, well, what does this mean? I couldn't interpret the poetry like I can as an older woman now. I have experience. I have been at that branch in the road. I know consequences from my choices much more than I knew when I was a teenager or even in my early adulthood. We learn from experience. That's part of aging wealth. And this song is looks at the cognitive. It's a beautifully choral arrangement of this music. Two roads diverged in a yellow wood. Must be the fall. I'm sorry I could not travel both of them. We want to do a lot of things in life. Usually we have to make these choices. But being one traveler, long I stood. What shall I do? I looked down one as far as I could. Well, that music career, look where it's taken me, to where it bent in the undergrowth. You know, we can see a bit down the road. We're not, nothing's sure in this life. I took the other just as fair, but not. It wanted where it had not been taken yet. The road less traveled, as it were, and etc. So now I look back and I saw these two roads. I took one and thought I'd take the other one another time, but as life is, I never got back to that other road, and that's okay too. So this is a song to me. The Road Not Taken is a song that exemplifies wisdom, and for it to be sung by a mature group of singers, they add their cognitive matrix and interpretation. They're not just singing the words, they're internalizing and feeling the words and the meaning of it. That's the ideal. retraining the brain through music. When we speak, only a very small part of the brain is used, and it's called Broca's area, I think number 44, and it is the area that makes our mouth move and say a word. It's very limited use of the messaging system that we have developed, which is namely the face, the thoracic area, the hyoid, the vocal cords, the auditory, two of the auditory ossicles, from my understanding. And there's a lot of facial nerves in here. So we have a great amount of ability to message with our voice. And when we sustain sound and let this cognitive matrix roll through it, many parts of the brain are activated to make that happen. And these are important parts of the brain because they're associated with memory. And so when you have Alzheimer's patients or stroke victims or Parkinson's patients, but mainly Alzheimer's because this area eventually gets damaged earlier than later in the disease, and also stroke victims also have this area, and you can try, you can't make words happen. But if a song comes up, all these other areas support Amazing Grace, how sweet the sound.
Now you go through St. Louis, Joplin, Missouri, and Oklahoma City is mighty pretty. You'll see Amarillo, Gallup, New Mexico, Flagstaff, Arizona. Don't forget Winona, Kingman, Boston, San Bernardino. Won't you get hip to this timely tip? When you make that California trip, get your kicks on Route 66.
Here's an example. Give me You're Tired, You're Poor. It's an Irving Berlin sheet of music, and it's a patriotic song. Let's talk about memories here. So we've talked about this little area that does speech, and then there's an area called Veronica. It's a relatively small area that connects and makes sense of words. So people who have a stroke in this area can't speak, but they want to speak, and they know what they want to say. People who have damage in this Wernicke's area, but not in the Broca's, can talk away, but it's jabbers, they don't know, but it's just jabberish because there's no part of the brain that's going to connect it. Music, however, structures language for us. It structures the rhythm of language for us. It intonates language for us, so it's not just speaking like this through one monotone. Ah, la, la, I'll be loving you. And so when we look at, okay, so that's the speaking mechanism versus singing. Big difference in areas that are recruited to make one happen. Very simple to just sit there and talk on a collapsed system. Very different to take that system and take a breath and blow air into your lungs, press air into your lungs, and then make sound and sustain sound and share the thoughts that accompany that sound. All these colors emerge and many different parts of the brain. Parts of the brain they don't even know what they do. So that's the power of it. So, okay, we've talked about speaking versus singing. Let's talk a little bit about memories. When we have a memory, I'm in the studio here with my wonderful producer, Liz Lockhart, here out in Comcast Studios in Manassas. I've been here numerous times. It's always a great visit here. We always have a good visit before the filming starts and a couple of laughs, and we catch up on each other's lives, and it's a wonderful, wonderful, rich memory. That's one kind of memory, and it gets planted deep inside me. Do I think of that memory every day? Nope. As soon as I'm out of here, I'm on to the next thing. But as soon as I come back, a lot of memories are resurrected just through the environment and through Liz's energy and our ability to, the relationship we've built. Patriotic music for almost everyone in every country particularly America, has there's at least 7, 8 holidays: Veterans Day, Memorial Day, Washington's birthday, 4th of July, etc., where we celebrate our patriotism. And what comes along with those memories? Parades, colors, flags, marching bands, fireworks, barbecues, playing games with family, getting to know family better, building relationships, all sorts of wonderful memories. And those songs that we associate with, and plus we have some time off where we can sit back, relax, breathe a bit, maybe take a nap, and so we're able to really embed, that's a rich, pleasant, positive memory. So when a patriotic song comes up, the national anthem, My Country 'Tis of Thee, God Bless America, and here's another, give me your tired, your poor, your aching masses yearning to be free, the wretched refuse of your teeming shore. That adds another dimension of pride. This is what we stand for as Americans. And there's a long history of that. We're not making this up. Patriotism runs very deep as a memory. So this is a very interesting song, and there's an excerpt that follows this. It's set very differently. There's no syncopation. Pom, 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 pom. Very settled, stoic, unflappable. There's no flipping around with syncopation. And we have those memories that are resurrected in this song and that add to our ability to interpret this song. And you'll hear that in the examples that follow. Another song from this weekend's offerings was Always. So this is a very interesting song and a very slow 3. 1, 2, 3. Everything went wrong, and the whole day long I'd feel so blue. The men sing this. Very disjunct. Very bum, 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 bum. 3. Bum, bum, that's a slow heart rate, kind of a sad heart rate. And that heart rate, that pulse is maintained throughout this whole piece. The other voices are doing loo, loo, loo. They're hiving together as a collective, which can be interpreted several ways. But it also transforms, the words transform in the middle of this piece. And it goes from I'm sad, I'll miss you, now that my blue days have passed, I've found you. I'll be loving you always. So the tune gets closer together, more melodic, da 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 dum, which is a lot more reassuring for us. There's no disjunct, da 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 bum bum, almost like a broken person singing it. So there's a lot of ways to look at melody that will shape and interpret that nonverbal language that music is. It's a wonderful thing. audiences that the city choirs sang for this weekend are elderly audiences with vast experience over the course of many decades that include deep, richly embedded memories of favorite songs, of patriotic songs, of Broadway musicals, and other great composers, and there's so many of them, write great masterworks, and there's so many of those that bring clever, meaningful, sentimental, patriotic, humorous, Java jive, even a cartography, the Route 66. You get your kicks on Route 66. And they list off all these counties and cities and states on Route 66. And if you've been to one of those cities, you're going to sing it differently than a person who's just singing the words. So that's one thing that aging minds and aging brains can bring to the table is experience. And when they sing the name of a city and on that piece, Route 66, and they can identify it, and the color of that sound changes depending on what their experience was in the culture. That's the involuntary nonverbal international language of music, especially through singing. So how lucky we are to be able to have this wonderful repertoire of choral music, have the opportunity to sing it in venues such as aging homes, as is funded by the Del Plain Foundation. Thank you very much. And the audiences who enjoy music as much as elderly do. Now, why is that? We'll end with that. As we go, the auditory system is the first system to mature before you're even born. 4 months before you're born, the auditory system is complete and you can hear everything. Your heartbeat with your mother's heartbeat, what's happening outside, the dog barking, the doorbell ringing. As a fetus in the womb, you are hearing these things. And it is the last system to extinguish upon death. Everything else stops, and finally the auditory goes zzz. It actually generates energy from the sound that's brought in. Enough that otolaryngologists are trying to figure out how to charge a hearing aid battery or a hearing implant battery with the energy that's generated in the cochlea from the frequencies that come in from the environment. The brain has no feeling. It gets everything from the sensory-rich environment. Visual, olfactory, touch, and this very, very refined auditory system that is with us before we're even born and after we pass away. Can you believe that? That's what it is. It's very refined, and we're very responsive to it at a subconscious level. So there's a lot more I could say about this. I think I've talked enough. Very much a pleasure and an honor to be with the City Singers this weekend and to hear them sing and prepare and perform, and to be able to add a few words here and there about my interpretation of what's going on at the neuroscientific level, at the physiologic level, at the cognitive level, at memory levels, and at the transformational level. We transform through music, whether we're performing it or whether we're passively listening to it and riding piggyback on what's going on in the environment. Thanks for being with me today, and all blessings and good health to you all. Thank you.
Travel my Joplin, Missouri, and Oklahoma City is mighty pretty. You'll see Amarillo, Gallup, New Mexico, Flagstaff, Arizona. Don't forget Winona, Kingman, Boston, San Bernardino. Won't you get him this time in tip? When you make that California trip, get your kicks on Route 66. 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 Get your kicks on Route 66.